Eco-friendly building materials, myth or reality? Imagine a house whose walls breathe like a living organism and whose foundation doesn't poison the soil, but instead helps restore its health. Sounds like science fiction from the future? Yet such buildings already stand right in the middle of our cities, quietly challenging everything we thought we knew about construction. We hear more and more about green technologies, eco-friendly materials, and sustainable developments. But how real is any of it? Or is it just clever marketing, designed to soothe the consumer's conscience without actually changing the system? Today we'll dive into the world of modern building materials, where every tiny fragment of brick might carry either hope or deception. You'll discover which materials are genuinely safe for both the planet and people, how they're made, where they're used, and why some represent a true breakthrough, while others are merely a pretty wrapper around an old problem. Let's start with the most fundamental question. What exactly counts as an eco-friendly building material? It's not simply natural wood or clay, as many assume. Eco-friendliness is a multifaceted concept. It includes not only the origin of the raw material, but also the energy consumed during production, emissions released into the atmosphere, potential for recycling, and even the impact on human health during use. For instance, ordinary brick might seem harmless, but firing it requires enormous amounts of energy and releases significant carbon dioxide. Wood, on the other hand, may appear ideal, but if it's harvested illegally or without proper reforestation practices, that house becomes not a sanctuary, but a symbol of destruction. True eco-friendliness, therefore, is a delicate balance between nature, technology, and ethics. One of the most striking examples of genuine innovation in this field is the use of agricultural waste. Picture this: rice husks, straw, hemp stalks, even fungal mycelium are now being turned into building blocks, insulation, and even load-bearing structures. In the Netherlands, for example, an entire residential complex has already been built using blocks made from hempcrete, a material that's not only strong and durable, but actually absorbs carbon dioxide from the air as it hardens. In other words, the house literally eats greenhouse gases, making the atmosphere cleaner. In California, young scientists have developed a biodegradable insulation from mushroom mycelium that's not only harmless to human health, but also turns into compost at the end of its life cycle. This isn't fantasy, it's reality, already reshaping the rules of the game. But why haven't such materials become the norm yet? The answer lies in economics and the inertia of habit. Traditional construction companies have relied for decades on concrete, steel, and plastic, materials that are cheap to mass produce, predictable in performance, and supported by well-established supply chains. Introducing new raw materials requires overhauling entire production systems, retraining professionals, and crucially, earning the trust of clients. Many architects and developers are hesitant to take risks, especially when it comes to residential buildings, where safety isn't just a buzzword, but a legal and moral obligation. Interestingly, though, it's often during crisis periods when energy prices soar and environmental regulations tighten that innovations truly gain momentum. For example, after the 2022 energy crisis in Europe, demand for bio-based insulation nearly tripled. People began to realize that eco-friendliness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's also important to debunk one of the most persistent myths, that natural materials are always safe. The truth is far more nuanced. Take cork, for instance, material often marketed as perfect for floors and walls. Yes, it's renewable since the bark is harvested without killing the tree, but if formaldehyde-based adhesives are used in production, the entire green benefit vanishes. The same goes for certain paints or varnishes that may contain volatile organic compounds capable of causing headaches, allergies, and even chronic illnesses. That's why it's not enough to simply read eco-friendly on a label. You need to examine certifications, ingredient lists, and supply chains. In Europe, strict standards like cradle to cradle or LEED already exist, evaluating every stage of a material's life cycle, from raw material extraction to final disposal. Another fascinating aspect is the role of ordinary individuals in this transformation. We tend to think that choosing building materials is solely the domain of engineers and contractors. But in reality, anyone building a home or renovating a space is casting a vote with their money for one approach or another. When demand drops for toxic, energy-intensive materials, manufacturers have no choice but to adapt. In Germany, for example, thanks to grassroots civic initiatives, over 60% of new private homes now incorporate at least 30% renewable or recycled materials. This didn't happen by accident. It's the result of conscious choices made by thousands of families who decided their home should be not only cozy but also responsible. Still, one question remains. Can we build a truly eco-friendly building today? The answer is yes, but with caveats. A fully zero-impact structure that leaves no carbon footprint and seamlessly returns to the natural cycle is still rare. However, it's already possible to construct buildings that generate more energy than they consume, use only non-toxic materials, and collect rainwater for household needs. Such projects are already underway in Sweden, Canada, Japan, and even Russia. For instance, a school built recently in the Moscow region using straw bales and clay consumes 5 times less energy than a standard building. This isn't an experiment. It's proof that change is possible. Of course, the road to widespread adoption of eco-friendly building materials is far from complete. Technical, economic, and even cultural barriers remain. But the most crucial shift is in mindset. We must stop seeing construction as a one-time disposable process and start viewing buildings as living systems that interact with their environment. After all, a home isn't just a concrete box. It's the space where children are born, meals are cooked, conversations happen, and dreams unfold. Don't we deserve for that space to be not only beautiful, but also honest with nature? So, dear friends, don't hesitate to ask your contractors tough questions. Study material compositions and demand transparency. Every choice you make is a brick in the foundation of the future. And that future isn't somewhere far away in distant laboratories or international conferences. It starts right here, in your home, in your neighborhood, in your decision. Keep learning, share what you know, and inspire others. Because eco-friendly building materials aren't a myth. They're a reality we're creating together, one conscious step at a time.